What if things had been different? What if Alderaan was never a world of peace, but instead the very heart of the Empire? What if Alderaan had been the capital of tyranny itself? Many times within the galaxy far, far away, we have this tendency to wonder, what if? And those what ifs vary greatly. What if Anakin never burned and wore the classic Darth Vader suit? What if Han didn't shoot first? Or, one of my personal favorites, what if Jar Jar Binks was actually the Sith Lord we were looking for all along, and not Palpatine himself? One element these what ifs have in common is simple. They revolve around people and events. What if those people or events changed, and how that shifted the galaxy as a whole? With that mindset ever present, it led me to uncover an intriguing scenario from the Star Wars archives, 1977 to 1983, by Paul Duncan. This time it opened the door to a very different kind of what if, one I can't wait to share with you today. Instead of the familiar tales we've always known, this perspective turns everything on its head. The once radiant homeworld of Princess Leia, Alderaan, wasn't the peaceful jewel of the galaxy at all. In this version for Star Wars, Alderaan was something far darker. In this alternate timeline, Alderaan would have been known as probably Dark Alderaan to us, or to the known galaxy, the Imperial capital of the galaxy. Now, normally when we think of Alderaan, we picture a pristine planet of lush forests, sparkling lakes, and snow-capped mountains. A world committed to peace, culture, and diplomacy. It was entrenched with peaceful political power through the Organa family, and in canon quietly aided the rebellion while refusing to embrace violence later on. So Alderaan was always a symbol of innocence, which made its destruction by the Death Star one of the most haunting moments in Star Wars history. What if things had been different? What if Alderaan was never a world of peace, but instead the very heart of the Empire? What if Alderaan had been the capital of tyranny itself? Well, with that in mind, let's turn to page 46 of the Star Wars archives and take a closer look at a photo 2.2025. Here it reveals to us the original concept art of Alderaan titled Imperial City, Alderaan, City Floats in the Grey Clouds by Ralph McQuarrie, painted after February 20th, 1975. More specifically, it goes on to state, the second draft of the script featured our heroes, Luke and Han, breaking into the Imperial City to rescue Deke, Starkiller. The two TIE fighters are based on Colin Cantwell's prototype, and between them in the far distance, the pirate ship can be seen about to dock. Now, this excerpt makes it clear that Luke and Han were infiltrating the Imperial City itself, a storyline that paints Alderaan in a completely different light. The Imperial City, as you can see, does continue to make more appearances, and is mentioned again in greater detail. I think the coolest part about discovering Dark Alderaan is that we are also uncovering a completely different Star Wars story as a whole. Much different than the one we got in A New Hope. So if you do have a copy of the archives, I do recommend reading those pages, somewhere around pages 45 to 50, and you'll really be blown away by the changes that Star Wars underwent from conception to the final script. Now, returning back to pages 48 through 49, I'm going to read another excerpt that further details what this version of Alderaan actually looked like for the citizens of the galaxy, or in this case, an alternate galaxy. The Empire is based in Alderaan, capital of the new Galactic Empire. The towering white oxide clouds pass, revealing the Imperial City of Alderaan. A magnificent domed and gleaming city is perched, mushroom-like, on a tall spire, which disappears deep into the misty surface of the planet. The peacefulness of this nebulous idyll is broken by the increasing wall of ion engines. 4 sleek Star Destroyers from the Imperial Third Fleet burst from one of the huge cumulus ranges. Craft are flying in a TIE formation as they bank steeply and head towards the Imperial capital of the galaxy. Imagine the ripple effect this would have had. Instead of being the symbol of lost innocence, Alderaan would have been remembered as the very seat of oppression. Princess Leia, born into the ruling family of Alderaan, would have had her story drastically reshaped. Maybe she wouldn't have lived there at all. Could she have even existed in that same form that we've come to know and love? Or Leia herself have been the daughter of the Empire? Beyond that, the destruction of Alderaan by the Death Star wouldn't have carried the same tragic weight. Instead of shocking the galaxy with the obliteration of a peaceful world, it would have been seen as the fall of the very capital of evil itself, a completely different emotional beat for the saga. In a way, I guess you could sort of relay this to Operation Cinder, which we see in the Battlefront 2 storyline. But again, the destruction of Alderaan, if Alderaan were the seat of the Empire, probably would have been celebrated by the rebellion. I always thought what-ifs were interesting, but the ones that were actually alive in George Lucas's early concepts are even more enthralling when you really look into it. One thing I've learned from the archives is that many of George Lucas's and Ralph McQuarrie's unused ideas eventually found their way back into Star Wars. Example Alderaan, but also other great examples are The Mandalorian, which pulled heavily from Lucas's love of classic westerns. And of course, we've even seen names and references to things like Starkiller, and they resurface in projects like the Force Unleashed video game series. Ironically, in the same pages of the archives, George Lucas himself reminds us and leaves us with a little lesson. And he goes on to say, "The idea about writing is that ideas aren't precious. You have to get over the idea that everything you think of is brilliant. You have to be willing to throw it away. Usually if I like something, I very often end up using it somewhere else later on." And that's the beauty of Star Wars. Nothing is ever truly lost. No one is ever truly gone. Old concepts resurface, evolve, and sometimes even become cornerstones of new stories. The history of Star Wars is really simply incredible when you look at it, and hidden within it are these alternate timelines, places where stories could have taken a very different nature. Dark Alderaan is one of those crossroads, a world that could have defined the Empire instead of symbolizing peace and loss. I guess in a way, it's almost like looking at the galaxy through a different lens of the world between worlds, which we might be doing sometime soon again. So if you're enjoying the Tales from the Archive series here on Star Wars Infinite, or my content as a whole, please leave a like on this video and share your thoughts below. What did you think of Dark Alderaan, and would you have preferred Alderaan remain as the Empire's capital, instead of being used the way it was in the original films? Remember, younglings, in Star Wars, reality can shift in an instant. Sometimes the worlds we love could easily have been the ones we feared the most. And as always, remember to stay grounded in reality, because sometimes an alternate timeline might just be lurking around the corner. Until next time, everyone, stay safe out there, and may the Force be with you always.